Why would Pokemon create such short supply during one of the biggest bull markets that we've seen? It's a question that you may be asking. Was this intentional? Why won't Pokemon delay releases? Or did Pokemon simply underestimate demand? In this video, we'll explore those questions and compare events from the past. By the end, you'll have a better understanding of what's going on and how it may affect you as a collector. Let's start with the idea that Pokemon is purposefully underprinting or holding back supply. It may sound counterintuitive, it's against their own interest. Why wouldn't they just print as much as possible? They could maximize profits. They could sell more, right? Well, not exactly. Scarcity can be a strategy in a bull market, and scarcity creates excitement. When supply feels limited, FOMO kicks in, and every product drop becomes a major event. It can even change sentiment about an entire era. For example, Twilight Masquerade used tough pull rates and a desirable chase card to spark interest in the entire Scarlet and Violet era. That's the power of scarcity done right. Staggering supply also gives Pokemon flexibility. By holding back, they can gauge demand over time and avoid overprinting. And that's a problem that we saw with Scarlet and Violet 1. Coming off of the pandemic, Pokemon used purchase data to adjust print runs, gradually learning what the market could handle. But by the time we hit SV1, pull rates had been diluted and supply was at all-time highs, which then corrected the market. We can see a clear difference between the pull rates of SV1 and SV6. A smaller print supply and increased difficulty in pull rate created market demand. As evidence, we've seen stabilization of Twilight Masquerade since October, even in this bull market. So how about scenario 2 though? Let's consider the possibility that Pokemon was prepared, but demand exceeded their expectations. First, remember, Pokemon has weathered bull markets before, like the Pokemon Go boom in the pandemic era. But predicting demand can still be a challenge. In order to forecast, Pokemon uses tools like prior sales data and pre-orders to help gauge interest. When market shifts though, this can make matters not go to plan. For Prismatic Evolutions, Pokemon Center ETBs were limited to 2 per customer from the get-go, and they still sold out instantly. This is a clear signal of extraordinary demand. It's also important to remember that adjusting production on a massive scale isn't instantaneous. How can we expect short-term reactions by a company this large? We're talking about the highest grossing franchise in history. They've estimated to have grossed more than $150 billion in their lifetime revenue, and only $12 billion of that was from the trading cards. There's so much more at play, like timing trading cards with their video game and merchandise schedules, which also explains another point I've been hearing a lot about. Why won't they delay? Well, one reason is it may cause a conflict with their other departments, throwing off the synchronization of those releases. For example, if they push the dates out for Journey together, it may clash with the new Pokemon A to Z video game, and that video game aligns with the black and white cards that we're getting later this year. And remember, video games make up $28 billion compared to the $12 billion of TCG revenue. So the next time you hear why don't they slow down or stop making sets, that is why. The TCG is synchronized to the other parts of the company, and Pokemon is a Goliath. All of that into consideration, here's the good news. Regardless of whether this scarcity is intentional or due to underestimated demand, supply will catch up. Typically, Pokemon prints cards for 2 to 2.5 years during their standard cycle, giving them multiple product waves. Let's say this is intentional underprinting. Pokemon will release additional waves over time, keeping the excitement high while still balancing the market. In fact, if this is deliberate, it's the best case scenario. That means they know what they're doing and have a printing plan for it. And if you're hearing otherwise or disagree, let me give you some historical context with Roaring Skies. Released May 6, 2015, for a long while, Pokemon interest had moved at a predictable rate. This was, however, until what happened July 6th, 2016. Pokemon Go was released, creating a surge in demand. So what happens when supply doesn't meet demand and FOMO sets in? Price surges. Here's the price graph of how bad things got for Roaring Skies, a set that was still in standard print. Does this look familiar to you? Does this price movement remind you of anything else? At the end of 2016, they announced a reprint on a scale that obliterated the secondary market. Do not underestimate Pokemon's ability to reprint or clean house. But what happens if they weren't prepared? Let's say it's option 2. That they were caught off guard. If demand continues to exceed expectations, it may take longer for supply to catch up, but history shows it will happen. I just showed you one example of many that happen when demand surges. Just like what we saw with Roaring Skies and Shining Fates and 151 initial prices were inflated, but FOMO stabilized as reprints and restocks hit the market. Let's say you still doubt that they can pull it off and doubt they will ever be able to catch up. What often gets overlooked is Pokemon's ability to change demand without increasing supply. There's a tool in their toolbox that can crash or boom a market without printing a single booster. Pull rates. Imagine a world where every booster guaranteed a special illustration rare. It would render SIRs useless. There would be no value from them, and thus no value in opening product. And when there's no value in opening product demand decreases. While this is an extreme and I would never expect it to happen, it illustrates how scarcity drives value. By adjusting pull rates, Pokemon can balance demand when supply is constrained. Do not forget this. This is exactly what we saw with Twilight Masquerade. Greninja's SIR's tough pull rates made it feel exclusive, driving interest not only in the product, but then affecting the rest of the Scarlet and Violet era. So was this short supply intentional, or did Pokemon get caught off guard? Either way, the end result is the same. Supply will eventually meet demand. The key is to stay patient and avoid falling into FOMO traps. And on the topic of FOMO, there are 3 common traps that collectors fall into. I covered them and how to avoid overpaying in the suggested video. Be sure to check that out. I'll look forward to chatting more about this in the comments with you. Until then, stay safe, much love, and remember, stay informed, collect smarter. I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.